right, we are going live,
Right.
hopefully.
Good evening. We are here with Guiding Abundance. I'm Arla Williams, and we have our wonderful co-host Sam doing the things that he does. And tonight we are really excited. We have Brett Eichenberger and Jill Remensnyder. Did I say that right?
Yes.
Yeah, great job.
All right. All right. And they're going to tell us tonight a little bit about what's been going on with them. They have this awesome documentary coming out, Flash of Beauty, Bigfoot Revealed. And there's a teaser out there and around that you can watch. And it is in our Guiding Abundance group. We are live in our Guiding Abundance group, but we will also be posting this on YouTube after we are through. So welcome, you guys. I'm glad you got to make it. And if you...
Yeah. Well, Arla, thanks for having Sam. They've been working on a Bigfoot documentary. We figured that was the best way to make the most of the pandemic, seeing that we couldn't really be around other people. A lot of our other projects got put on the back burner. And being in the forest, looking for things that aren't supposed to exist seemed like a good way to make the most of things.
Yeah, and this has been really kind of like a passion project for both of us. And Jill and I have been together for about 20 years, and part of why we hit it off is because of a mutual interest in all things undiscovered, paranormal, what have you. And of course, being Native Oregonians, we've both had an affection for Bigfoot, and we've always wanted to know. And so the Bigfoot thing for us is not new. The curiosity has always been there. And this has been a project that we've talked about doing, but the pandemic, fortunately for us, turned into an opportunity to finally do it. And we thought that we would just spend the summer last summer interviewing a few folks, because there's a lot of great Bigfoot people here in the Pacific Northwest. And we thought, we'd wrap it up and have it out in the fall. And we started going down the Bigfoot rabbit hole, and we're still going.
We're still falling.
Yeah.
Very quickly.
Yeah. Yep. It's been a lot of fun.
And I just have to say, one of the most interesting things that's part of the discovery process while making this documentary is like what Brett said, being in the Pacific Northwest, Bigfoot is just something that you kind of grow up, is part of the landscape. It never occurred to me that there would be Bigfoot, Sasquatch sightings or experiences in the Midwest, in the southern states, in New England states. This has been very eye-opening, and especially, coming out to Oklahoma, going to Texas, just the people I've met online, talking to people in Pennsylvania, talking to people in Florida, it's really been eye-opening.
It's been great.
Yeah, it's I kind of, it is, because I grew up on the East Coast, like we discussed earlier, and I always thought, even on the East Coast, that Sasquatch was a Pacific Northwest thing. And so, it took me a few years of experiencing stuff myself to even realize what I was dealing with too. Yeah.
And what's been really interesting also is just learning from people's experiences, just kind of the temperament and the different experiences they're having in different regions. And while there's some things that seem universal, there also seem to be some, I guess, some outlier, you would say, temperaments or behaviors, like in the southern states versus Pacific Northwest compared to like Ohio, Pennsylvania area. It's just been a really interesting journey thus far.
Yeah.
And I feel like we're just getting started.
This, as we'll move on to other projects, this will always be something that we will probably come back to, probably professionally. So I'm not saying there's going to be a sequel yet, because the first one hasn't come out yet, but we've talked about it already. Just put it
Yeah,
that way.
there's already too much. I mean, going into this, like Brett said, we thought we were just going to do some interviews and just something fun and light and easy. And then as we started talking to people, and is like the breadcrumbs were being put out, and we were being directed to talk to other people, and their stories and what they've been through and the evidence they've collected really started raising more questions for us. So, you know, we didn't go in with a solid plan as far as what we're going to find or what we were looking for. We just followed the story, and it's taken us to some interesting places.
Oh, for sure. For sure. For sure.
You know, that's what happens with this, is you think, you know, this is what you're setting out to do. And then there are all these twists and turns that happen, you know, because you're dealing, number one, with humans who have all different thoughts and beliefs and understandings. And so you're going to see all different kinds of reactions that they might have. You know, I've spent part of my life working with people, trying to help them understand, because that's where we get into this big scary monster thing, is that people don't understand what's going on. And, you know, you've got a being that's, well, I'll take Al Collar, almost 13 foot tall. And if he's anywhere near you, you're going to feel it. Plus, if he makes any noise at all, just the vibration, just the walking through the woods, all of that is felt. And if you are already in a place where you don't know what's going on, then fear jumps in. And I think that's with what you guys are doing, that is going to help that in such a good way to see how all of these different interactions and things come about. And once we realize that they've always been there, if they were out to massacre us, they would have already done it. I mean, because we don't give them much hope as a species. So, you know, that's the thing with you guys, is you're going to bring a lot of stuff forward. And I think that's important. And I think it's important to listen to all different kinds of stories too. And then, you know, you can find out, well, why did this happen? Or why did that happen? And it's not happening over here. So what's going on?
Yeah, and what's interesting is we found that through some interviews, people kind of come away with a little bit of a negative experience, and I think that's where you're, like what you're talking about, Arla. That's where the fear comes into play, because, you know, in this documentary we interview a Yale-educated clinical psychologist, and we talk to him about the after effects of seeing something that you don't think or have not been educated on existing. And that has a profound impact on your mental stability, so much so that it can result in post-traumatic stress disorder. And there's not a lot of people that are talking about the psychological aspect. And so we think it's really important, because what we've noticed throughout the making of this, outside of the filming of it, if we're talking about Bigfoot in the public area, ears will perk up, especially here in Oregon. And there's a lot of people that have come to us who have said, yeah, I've seen something, but I've never told anybody because I haven't been brave enough. I feel like people would judge me, and I don't want to be judged. And we feel like through what's happening right now with the disclosure of UFOs, people aren't giggling anymore. And people are kind of coming forward saying, you know what, I heard something, or I saw something. You know, we had a Daryl Adams, who's in our documentary, talks about a truck driver that lived in his neighborhood in Central Oregon. And he asked the truck driver, he says, you ever seen anything weird? No, I've never seen anything weird. And then a few days later, he came back to Daryl and he says, you know what? I couldn't hold it anymore. Yeah, I saw one digging through the trash one night. on my route, and I knew exactly what I was looking at. So he even denied it to a guy who's out in the open about his experiences. So we would love to get society talking about this,
Kind of
you know,
normalize
the conversation. Exactly. Because no, these things aren't monsters. They're misunderstood. And I think throughout human history, we've seen how humans, when they don't understand something, they turn it into something scary and evil. And that makes sense. That's a protective mechanism. So we would like to get people, you know, let's start talking about some of the weird things you've seen in the forest or wherever. You know, let's talk about it. It's okay. It's okay.
Yeah.
And
And
that's
kind of
paranormal.
why we wanted to do the show. Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
Yeah, that was one of the reasons we wanted to do like a show, you know, and why we think shows are important is because it gives people an outlet and it normalizes it, you know, to just discuss it like it's a normal topic, not like it's some taboo thing we have to do in the, you know, in a back room.
And that goes for pretty much everything that's going on in our existence right now. I mean, we'll pretty much touch on anything that people aren't understanding. It doesn't mean that we got all the answers, but at least, you know, we can give a forum where they can come and talk and express, you know, what's going on. So you know, what you guys are doing basically.
And I think we both agree, and all of us agree that are affiliated with this documentary, in the making of this documentary, we all feel like this is something for the betterment of humanity. And the last thing that we want to do is exploit the Sasquatch, exploit the Bigfoot, the forest people. But we have seen throughout our understanding of the animal kingdom and things that aren't human, we have learned a great deal, and we're still learning a great deal. You know, we're finding out things like the brain in a dolphin is far more complex than the actual human brain and bigger. You know, they could be smarter than us. Swimming along on, you know, in the sunshine sounds smarter than sitting in traffic all day, you know. So, you know, so I think there's a lot of, once we can get past the disclosure, if you will, of them, there's some science that can benefit humanity. And so we're trying to slowly or quickly move that along. And that we feel like the best way to do that is communicating with a little bit of a different message through our film.
And I also think, you know, something that we've talked about is just admitting and being forthright in the fact that we don't have all the answers. No one really knows exactly what this is, what rules apply in terms of science, in terms of what they are, where they come from, how they've managed to survive this long. I say undiscovered only because science hasn't cataloged them. And people don't think they exist.
Well, I think, you know, just to build on what Jill said, we don't have all the answers. I feel like the one answer that we do have right now is that it's not a myth. We know that much.
Right. We
know that they're real. We're convinced that they're real. We haven't had a sighting, but it doesn't take a sighting to know. You know, I just feel like, and we just feel like there are too many sightings. The data backs it up if you want to get analytical.
And even we've done we've interviewed 30
people.
Oh, I think 33 is the final number of people we've interviewed. And of their experiences, of their sightings, of the way it's affected them, I don't question a single word. I believe everyone's experience wholeheartedly. And there's the range of emotions and reactions and the way it's affected their life. Some people has been negative, other people's been life-changing. Like it's just opened their eyes to what else is out there that I haven't noticed before. And for some people, it's really gotten them out in nature and slowed them down. But yeah, it's just such a variety of stories. And I guess, you know what, I'll just cut to it. you know, there's been so many synchronicities in this project that I can't even begin to list them all. The way all the interviews have lined up just right. How we were introduced to you, Arla, through Marcia Moore, and how that worked out to meet with you, and it just on and on and on. We've never, you know, we've been doing film production for a bit of
over 20 years. Over 20 years.
We're
Long
old.
time.
But no project has ever lined up this with this much ease and lack of resistance.
Yeah.
I guess you could say.
Yeah.
There's been
very
everything has
positive.
just fallen into place.
Very positive.
And yeah, it's very refreshing, actually.
Yeah, and you know that it is important that this is brought. Now, whether or not they will ever be proven scientifically, from what I know, it's up to them. It's not up to us. We are definitely not in control. We're actually not in control of a whole lot of stuff that we think we are. But we have the opportunity to share with each other and to begin to learn more. And, you know, and as far as proving, I heard Ron Moorhead say many years ago that there is enough soft evidence on them to prove that they exist in a court of law. So if you took all of the evidence, anecdotal and whatever, and put it all together and went to court, you should have enough to prove that. So, and you know, if you go back to indigenous stories, tribal stories around the world, talk about them. They're depicted on rocks and on all kinds of things. And yet man, in his myth mode, thinks that, you know, this is just a myth. But it has grown so much in the years that I've been involved publicly in it that it's amazing. And the side that has grown the most is the woo side. That side that people just shake their heads and go, what the heck happened, you know? So, and the thing with the woo side is you got your quantum physics now. And I remember talking with Ron Moorhead years ago about quantum physics. And now it's like a daily word for people. And, you know, science has jumped up and said, okay. Well, all of these things, if you go to a lot of Eastern religions and beliefs, you find a lot of this stuff already in it.
Exactly.
So it's been out there all along. Man just hasn't opened up to look at it.
Yeah, and Ron also talks about how, you know, he equates some quantum physics to some of the miracles that occur in the Bible as well. And so that's what's really exciting to us. Now, we're coming from it as documentary filmmakers who are following a story. And so we have to be, you know, and we interview somebody named Farouk Muhammad in our documentary who really says it eloquently. He says, the data doesn't lie, the data tells the story. And if you manipulate the data, then you're not telling the entire story. And that's a fact. And so scientifically speaking, if we've got over half of the sightings and experiencers having some sort of paranormal component to it, we've got to tell that side of the story. Whether we personally believe it or not, we really need to put that out there. Now, we're convinced that there's more happening than just an ape in the forest, if you will. We believe that there is some sort of a paranormal aspect and or an aspect that's quantum, like Ron says.
That we just don't understand yet.
Yeah. And you know, when you really come back to who we are as humans versus who they could be as beings, we're just at our infancy. Modern humans go back really only about 100,000 years. And I've heard many, many theories about how, you know, the Bigfoot have been around millions of years potentially. So we don't know. I mean, we're just really kind of like a child wandering around trying to figure out
Yeah.
the world and life. And as a species, I think we're a little bit arrogant. We back down a little bit.
Just a little bit, just a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you know that
Yeah.
goes back to what I always say to people when they come to this and they want to learn about it. Okay, you can learn about them. You will learn some things about them. But if you open your mind and your heart to this, you're going to see things and you're going to learn more about yourself and who you are as a human. You know, typical stories of elders tell you that they come to help us. They come to tell us things. I know I heard one elder talking about, when they come to us, they're saying, you need to listen. You need to listen to what's going on here. You're not living like you should. You're not doing things as you should. So in that, they're teaching us by us trying to learn about them. And that's a very important thing that, that we need to learn, is to allow ourselves to open up and begin to see who we are. And when we can do that, then I can guarantee you there's a glimpse into who they are.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. And part of the component of our film is we talk about really getting yourself out into nature and with an open mind. And a lot of that, for this society that we live in now, with all these constant interruptions and our phones and our computers and iPads and everything else that's out to distract us, we need as humans to be able to turn down the noise, leave the phone in the car, and get out there into nature and just listen to nature, feel nature. And we feel like we haven't had any sightings, but we've had experiences. And those experiences have come from a time when we have just kind of let go, and as opposed to feeling like when we go out into nature that we're in charge of nature, we go out with nature in charge of us. We're a guest. We're a guest in the home of the animals and whatever else, the spirits and the beings that dwell in nature and in the woods.
And we're all neighbors.
Yeah.
All of us are neighbors with everything that's there, and they're all neighbors. And so, once we realize that these are our neighbors, then, we can start to maybe open up and think a little bit, well, if we're all neighbors, then shouldn't we be better to each other? Shouldn't we care more about what's going on wherever, whether you're in the woods in their home or in your home? So.
I agree. I hope to one day knock on Bigfoot's door and borrow a cup of sugar.
Okay.
Just kidding. That was
Be careful what you ask for.
That's right. That's right. We've got some strange stories in our film about the gifting. So you never know. I might have a bag of C&H on my doorstep when we're done.
Well, I had a sugar jar camping in Georgia. I used to do gatherings in Georgia, and I had a big jar of sugar on our camp kitchen for the gathering. And I had the lid on it, and it screwed on pretty tight. Well, Gail and I, a friend who we usually did the cooking and stuff, we got up and went to the kitchen, and all the sugar was gone, but the lid was on it. So no one was anywhere near any of that. Everything was folded, closed up. So, and I don't think raccoons put the lids back on if they get your sugar and stuff like that. There wasn't anybody else walking around.
Yeah.
So,
hey, at least
you might be pretty close.
Yeah. Wow. Well, I'd love to know what they were baking, whoever took the sugar.
Oh, I've got lots of funny stories about cooking. as far as they're concerned. Stuff people have told me. Uh,
So you guys started out doing like a movie with you wanted to do one on Bigfoot and you wanted to do one on UFOs and then another one on paranormal stuff. Is that correct?
Yeah.
So you started off with the Sasquatch movie.
Well, originally the idea was, this is how we've been guided to Bigfoot. So originally the idea was that we would, in this fun little documentary to pass the pandemic summer, we'd do a little segment on UFOs, one on ghosts and hauntings and Bigfoot. And we got as far as, we went on one ghost hunt, it was the ghost hunting expedition. We did that. We filmed the remains of a cattle mutilation, and then we interviewed Bigfoot experiencers, and then we were off to the races.
There was something about the Bigfoot that I thought we quickly realized that let's do this. Let's just stick to this because there is so much more to the story. And what was cool was it was incorporating almost everything that the documentary was incorporating by sticking to Bigfoot. We didn't know that at the time.
Yeah.
When we decided to do it in 3 pillars. But once we started getting into Bigfoot, we started hearing stories like, well, wait a minute.
Like, I had a UFO sighting right before my Bigfoot sighting.
Yeah.
Oh, and then weird stuff started happening at my house. Oh, so like we're just kind of checking off. I'm like, maybe there's something there.
Yeah. So that's how we ended up in it.
that's pretty much how it is. It's kind of all around them.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's all connected, man. When I finally put all the pieces together, like when I was like, yeah, it's all connected. Like you guys can do one big documentary on all of it, make it a few hours long, I'm sure.
Oh yeah, easily. And it's like you when you first get into something like this, you think, okay, this is easy. It's just a really clever Gigantopithecus that's avoiding cameras. Sometimes avoiding cameras. And this is really about just talking to people who've seen it and how big it was and how impressive it was. And, it's like finding anything else, like the elusive snow leopard or whatever. It's like, it was just pure cryptozoology. And that wasn't it.
No, once we heard stories about, it seems like there were the experiences, like the sightings that happen at a distance, kind of like at a safe space, compared to people who are out in the forest and turn a corner on a path and they're right there, and the impact that has. I think there's the closer proximity definitely impacts people more than the sighting from afar.
And we've also discovered too that there's a certain kind. We feel like through some of the data, it's almost like there's a certain kind of person that they will show themselves to. It's almost like they know you're okay to kind of like, hey, or whatever. I read an interesting stat by I can't recall her name right now, but she's based in Idaho, where she said that and all of the people she'd interviewed that had experiences, over 70% had a near-death experience. And so that started the wheels turning too, is to, wait a minute, is there something to that? Are the people that have the luck of seeing a Bigfoot, are a lot of these people connected somehow to the spirituality of it? Have they had a prior experience that has pre-qualified them, for instance? Again, these are all questions that we know we're not going to get any answers to, but we're trying to get closer to the answers.
But don't you think that
yes.
a person who's had a near-death experience is going to be a little more open to seeing something, or just being open enough to that. And, you know, for truth, they do read you. They know pretty much what you're thinking, who you are, you know, so they know that there was an experience that you've had. And for the people that I've talked to who have had a near death, they are different. They're not as closed off spiritually as maybe they were before it happened, because it totally does affect you in a different way and opens a part of you that you didn't understand before.
Yeah, you see life differently, and you live every single day to the fullest, as if it were your last. And I think that it puts everything into perspective. There's no question about it. So I do think that there's a lot of truth there. I really do. But that's not to say that folks who are just driving down the road or what have you can't have an experience either.
Exactly. You know? That's exactly true. It's about who you are.
Yeah.
And you know what, and they will show themselves to people that you say, why in the world would they show themselves to them? Well, they saw a purpose in it. We may not see that purpose, but there was a purpose there for that person, no matter who that person was. You know, I've talked to a lot of people, and I have one friend who was on a team of people who were trying to kill a Bigfoot. And they were snipers, and that's what they were out there for. And he said when he came down on one and was looking at him through his scope, he was just immediately overcome. And you know, it was like, this is not what I thought it was. And so his whole being opened up, and all these questions started coming, and he had to know. He had to know. And so, you know, why did the Bigfoot or the Sasquatch stand there where that one could have shot him very easily? And they know.
Yeah.
They know what's going on.
Yeah.
They saw something in him, and he really did a change.
Wow.
So yeah,
we've heard a couple of those very similar stories.
Or the stories of skeptics, people who had sightings but were skeptics and total non-believers, and just how it's turned their world upside down. For some, a curse; for some, a blessing.
Yes.
I guess, Orla, I think it's like what you said. It's a reflection, kind of the person you are and the experiences you bring forth are kind of mirrored through the encounter you have.
Yes. And if they're coming to us to help us, then that's what they've done with that skeptic. They've given them something that they can begin to think about. And yes, it's totally up to each individual to make the decision of, was this a horrible thing, or is this something I need to learn about? Yeah. Is there more? So yeah, in essence, you know, coming to somebody that doesn't believe in you and, you know, thinks you're just a myth would open you up to think, and there again, make your own choices about what to do with it.
Yeah, that's right. We interviewed these two men, Chad and Austin, who are from Southern Oregon, and they grew up in the woods. And you know, they'd heard about Bigfoot, and they'd had friends that had seen them, and so on and so forth. But again, they didn't put a lot of stock into it. And just last October in Southern Oregon, near the California border, they had an extended sighting of an adult and a juvenile. Literally out in the middle of nowhere. And they, you know, they ended up going back to their campground. Long story short, went back to their campground, and they couldn't sleep because of the adrenaline that was flowing through them. They saw them, the Sasquatch, about 6 o'clock at night or something, and adrenaline. And then they started hearing the noises around them, around the entire campsite. And they ended up not being able to stay. But the point is that didn't leave their head. It just played back and played back and played back. And they became support group for each other. So Chad would call Austin and say, we saw that, right? We saw that, right? Same thing with Austin. We saw that. They'd send each other texts. That wasn't, and there wasn't any sort of discussion of it being a bear, because there's two men there that are hunters, and, they're armed because they're out in the middle of nowhere. They're in a national forest, so they're armed for their own protection, and they didn't once think about firing a shot or anything else. They just literally stood there and admired the beauty of it, and just watched it until it saw them. And as soon as it saw them, it was in the forest and it was gone. It was a flash of beauty. And they, when we went back to do a little bit of a kind of a recreation and interview in that exact spot a few weeks ago, I had the microphones on them and I was listening to them as we were setting up different shots and stuff. And Chad and Austin were talking to each other. I was kind of eavesdropping, but they knew I could hear them. And, Austin said to Chad, he says, man, I would do anything to see it again. I just want to see it again. And Chad says, yeah, I know. I just want them to come back so we can show the world that they're real, so we can get it on camera and show their world. We're not crazy. So it really had a profound effect on him. And it's been a positive effect, but it's taken a while to get to a positive effect. There's still fear and uncertainty there.
I'd say it's a profound impact on everyone that we've spoken to.
Yeah.
So far,
even if they haven't had a sighting, if they've had the experiences, it's been profoundly affected them.
It does. I don't talk to a lot of people, and even that's like with the glyphs. The person finds their first glyph and it's like, whoa, I can't believe this. Look at this. Is this really a glyph now, or am I just, trying to see something that's not there? And, all I can do is tell them, what do you think? Look at it. How does it feel? What was going on in your life? There are going to be components that are kind of universal, but it's communication. So communication changes depending on context of what's going on. So, but the smallest things trigger us humans into joy. Just the smallest things that they do. I, talk to people who are just getting into trying to have some kind of a communication through glyphs or rocks or whatever, and they start that, and then they get that feedback from them, and they're like, oh my gosh. And yes, it is almost earth-shattering for a lot of people. And so, we begin to look for signs, look for communication, and our hearts began to open up, and it's, it takes you to another place. And, if you continue to be in a respectful manner with them, then the majority of the time you're going to get something back for that. And, it may be a small thing. One of the coolest things they ever did for me, and they've done a ton of stuff, but walking down to the cabin one day, and I just hollered out, could I get a whoop? And no, but okay. Get a tree knock. No tree knock. So I'm walking and I hear this glunk, and I went, glunk. And I heard it again, glunk. And I was, okay, so I get a glunk. I'm happy, So, it wasn't like this great big thing that they did. I knew it was them. And basically what the sound made me think of was a paint can with about a half a can of paint in it, kind of hit with something or shook. That's kind of that glunk sound. And of course, I just busted out laughing. Well, they're going to enjoy that too, because they like to see that. in us. So such a small thing to bring me joy. And I see that all over. It doesn't take much for us humans to begin to look at this in a different way when we begin to connect with them in that way.
Yeah, and part of our, hope is to really give these beings a three-dimensional quality, and that this has been a one-dimensional thing in pop culture and in our society, and that characterization is that it's a big, tall, scary monster, kind of period. You know what I mean? As far as the public is concerned, we know better. Those of us who are more entrenched in it, but we are trying to win over the non-believers to a certain extent, or at least help make them think and have a different perspective and a different idea when they're out in nature. But the thing that we're talking about is, we've heard from a lot of people that they have a sense of empathy and a sense of humor. And, psychologists will tell you that people that have, great, deep senses of humor are always usually very intelligent. And so, we're dealing with something that's extremely intelligent. And, just the gifting that we profile in our documentary shows that. It shows that they have that sense of humor and that empathy and, the things that were left. Tobe Johnson talks about how, he's talking to Daryl on the phone about how his cell phone's cutting out and he's having problems with it. Well, the very next day, he finds an old, dirty, muddy cell phone underneath the oar in his boat. It's and Tobe looks at it and he says, "Hey, it's on T-Mobile. That's my plan. They knew my plan." So. And this is out in the middle of the country. This is not a child. This is not somebody being sneaky. It's very hard to explain. I'm not saying there's not another rational explanation for it, but in his case, in Tobe and Daryl's case, the gifting went on and on and on and on. And a lot of the times it was almost mind reading. Some of the things.
It's personal. Yeah.
It was very personal.
Yeah, it is. And that's the thing you see across the board with a lot of people. It becomes very personal. That's like, I think I told you about the glyph that they left for Matthew, and they left, most people not even knowing he was adopted or what his biological name was. Well, that's the symbol that they left. They didn't leave M for Matthew. They left what was the symbol for his biological name. So how would they know that?
Yeah.
They know.
Yeah. They
know.
It's interesting. It's it's sometimes the gifts are more personal than what you might get from a relative for Christmas.
I understand.
Right, yeah.
But it's not. It's like, oh yeah, well, Bigfoot knows me better. He would have known that I didn't like this sweater. But but it's not. But at the same time, it's like the gifts that we're talking about in the folks that we've interviewed. Mm-hmm. I don't know that the gifts are eerie. I think the gifts are winks. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And they're just winks saying, hey, look, I know you and I appreciate you. And I'm paying attention and I respect you. Yeah.
It's that connection to you. I know who you are.
Right.
I know who you are. I know what you think. I know what you feel. Yeah.
It's pretty profound. And it's touching, really.
Yeah, it is. Very much so.
I think that's why they show themselves to some people that you wouldn't expect, is because they can see through the person's facade.
Yes.
And they know who they're really dealing with.
Mm-hmm.
Agreed.
Yeah, I agree. That's
a good point.
Well, that's like the whole thing.
Oh.
Go ahead, Jill.
Oh, this was off topic. As this, for acknowledging the understanding and the connection and the awareness, I was just going to kind of turn the conversation a little bit to how are things going to impact moving the conversation forward when you have, even in Oklahoma, there's a bounty or what, $2-3 million.
I think it's up to $3 million.
Yeah, you see me laughing. That's
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
But so they're creating an
Yes.
opportunity to get hunters and
Yeah.
people
They're
excited to be out in the woods shooting things up.
Well,
And,
no, they did
and
change it
that's
to have to be live.
oh,
Yeah.
okay.
That's-
yeah, they're going to trap it and put it in a humane cage. So, my whole thing with that is it's kind of like the old Newhart show with Larry, Daryl, and Daryl, anything for a buck. And that's what this is all about, is the tourist dollar for Oklahoma. So, it is very disrespectful to me. Some of the things and advertisements and stuff for all of that is very disrespectful for me. But, I can only say to anyone, to me, this is disrespectful. I'm not going to tell you what you should be doing or why you should be doing it or anything else. I can only tell you how I feel about this situation. But I've seen that money thing jump up so much across the United States with people who have lost their cars, their homes, their families, because they wanted to be the one that proved. They wanted to tell society that they're not crazy, that they did see one. And so we get into that point of looking at it in a different way. And, what you guys are doing is bringing all these stories together so we all can look at them. And yes, of course, I have a different view because I grew up knowing about them, So, I've got a different view on putting one in a horse trailer, which was one of the photos I saw. But now that's already happened several years ago. The Russians said they had one and had it in a enclosed trailer type thing. And of course it wasn't one. You could tell that if you knew anything about them. So it's just that human thing of doing things. And I don't think that those people are being disrespectful intentionally. I believe they just don't know.
That's right. That's right.
The more you educate out there, which is what you guys are basically doing, educate, the better it's going to be, I believe.
That's exactly right. And that's exactly our purpose. And they're educating us. They're educating us. And, like Jill said, the synchronicity with this documentary is profound. And we feel very lucky to even be able to tell a story like this. And we feel like there's an invisible foot kind of pushing us, if you will, that's giving us some sort of an opportunity. It's just been really interesting and fantastic the way that it's come together.
Doors were opened.
That's right.
Yes.
That's right.
They're very good at that, believe me.
Oh yeah.
They're very good.
And you guys are walking through them.
Steered in specific directions, it feels like. So.
Yeah. Well, that's important. You guys are walking through the doors as they're open, which is why the synchronicities are continuing to go.
That's right.
A lot of people that would start these, do a documentary like yours, if it starts getting more towards the woo or the paranormal stuff, they might, come back over to the flesh and blood side because they don't want to go down that route. But if you guys are embracing that, then I think that in itself to me is a sign of what that there's definitely some help from behind the scenes with you guys, and they want this to be addressed.
Yeah,
and you guys are doing it in a good way too. So
yeah, we're telling the story the way that we feel the story's telling itself.
Yeah,
right.
If that makes sense. Yeah, we're giving it a soapbox, a platform, however you want to call it.
I mean, we're letting everyone say their truth, I guess you can say. And, you know, we're not choosing certain experiences over the others.
Mhm.
Everyone's experience is different.
Yeah.
And who's to say that someone who has not had a paranormal element to their sightings or experience won't have one later on?
As long as they're open to it.
That's right.
Some
Yeah.
people completely cut themselves off. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
But, and it's good, man, because that stuff's so important. Because it's like, you know, it's a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, man. You can't, you know, it's like they just go together. Like the whole, you're just blocking yourself off from such a important aspect to this whole thing if you deny that side of it, or one side or the other, either side. Because it's a mixture of both. There's science in this, there's quantum physics in this, there's a lot of spirituality in this. There's a lot of weird stuff too. But if you know, the further you go, like with me, like I just keep moving the goalpost. The weirdness is just, it's like normal, and then you move the goalpost to what's really weird, and then that becomes normal, and then I just don't even have goalposts anymore now because I don't, you know, it's just awesome. It's just it's always keeping me on my toes. So, yeah.
You know, a few years ago, you know, before we started the documentary, we were talking to someone. I don't know if you were part of this conversation. I'm not going to say who it is.
Okay.
But I was having a conversation, and they were telling me that there's no way possible that Bigfoot could exist. It's just beyond the realms of any kind of explanation, or just the possibilities were zero. Yet he took a deep breath and then went on to tell me about all the experiences he was having with a deceased family member coming back to visit him and appearing and stuff. And I'm like, you're telling me this can happen, but this can't. You're discounting all the reports and all the stories of people seeing Bigfoot, yet your own, but when it applies to you and your own personal experience, it's a different story.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I've seen that too. And, you know, and I've seen people who supposedly were psychic and could, you know, see everything that they were doing, who they were, whatever. And yes, there are people that, you know, will do that. But the one thing we do, no matter who we are and how much we've experienced in our lifetime, sometimes we just go, wait a minute, now, that can't be. Yeah, this other, yeah, I believe that, but why would that exist? You know, why? Well, if you're asking that why, you know, why can't it exist? Then you're on to something. But if you're saying it can't exist, then you shut your mind off.
Yeah.
And you're going to miss something unless they want you to get something. And I've seen them do that with people too, who were so totally, no, that's not happening. And,
we're just asking everyone to open their minds and consider the possibilities, that there are things in this world that we don't understand, and we don't have all the answers, and there are, why not? Why can't things exist that?
Yes,
yeah,
exactly.
Look at the evidence. Look at the evidence. I'm to a point right now where you're going to have to, you don't need to tell me, you don't need to talk me into to these things existing. You're going to have to try and talk me out of these things existing. And that's going to be tough. That's going to be really tough.
Right.
You know, because the you know, we all have countless ways of demonstrating how and why these things exist. And, you know, and I think it was Dr. Meldrum who says that, you know, he says, wait a minute, think about it this way. You're telling me that every single footprint that's ever been found in the history of Bigfooting has been faked. Imagine if a set of footprints, if there was one set of footprints that wasn't fake, that would mean that it exists. And you really start putting the logical aspect to it, and you think to yourself, yeah, that's, you know, that's a strong argument. It's a very strong argument. Never mind the credible police officers, doctors, lawyers, scientists who have seen it and seen it up close. And we've talked to those people, those pillars of society. There was a judge in Oregon who had a friend that had a sighting. And, you know, these are people who are just going about their business and they see it. But the skeptics, the city dwellers, it would have been captured by camera or something by now.
Well, and there again,
well, any
you
sighting.
know, somebody should have got it by a camera. Well, that paranormal just jumps right in. Well,
Yeah.
it doesn't.
Yeah.
And the argument about if you saw it, why didn't you take a photo? Why is the photo blurry?
Yeah.
I mean, Brett can attest to this. For the last few days, there's been a yellow butterfly. Whenever I go outside, it's like butterfly season. There have been butterflies that appear, and I will watch them. I'll be captivated, and by the time it occurs to me, I need to take a photo, they're gone.
Yeah.
And, I mean, even like neighborhood dogs and cats and stuff. I'm gonna take a photo.
It's next to impossible for me to get a good photo of my cat. You know, like just sit there just for a second so I can get this great photo of you. The light's hitting you perfectly. Meow, meow, you know, he runs off. You know, how many friends do people really know that have gotten great photos of mountain lions? You know, you see a tail.
Right.
See? You know, or whatever. I mean, it's just and what people don't understand is National Geographic and whatnot. Those guys are out there for weeks on end, sometimes months, to get that perfect grizzly bear shot. Or the snow leopard in Pakistan was just recently filmed for the first time by the Planet Earth crew, you know, less than 10 years ago. Very first time on camera.
What was the story? He was out there for like almost
He was out there for 4 months,
I
I think.
Okay.
And in the mountains, in the cold, in a blind, every single day, 12 hours a day, during the daylight, waiting for this thing to show up. And he finally, he's like, I'm giving up. And when he finally let go of that tension, guess who showed up?
Yep.
Snow leopard showed up and said, all right, I'll give you what you want. And the guy got gorgeous footage. And now the statistics are pretty strong that there are more people by far who have seen Bigfoot than have seen a snow leopard in the wild.
Yep.
So, you know,
I like those numbers.
There are real pictures out there of them.
Mhm.
But people say they're fake. I've seen real pictures of them.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
But if you could put one of those pictures on right now and be like, here it is, and people like that's fake. So pictures don't do anything. And even if, like, going back to what you guys were saying about the cast, or what Dr. Melton said, if one sighting out of the thousands of sightings that have happened, if one of them is real, then it's real. It exists.
Yeah.
Other than that, everyone is just hallucinating. These thousands and thousands of people that have seen them are hallucinating.
Yeah. No.
And in our experience filming, like when we've found tracks and structures out in the woods, these aren't like near trails, or these are not accessible areas. I mean, this is like way off the beaten path. And for someone to try to put a hoax together in some of these remote spots, it'd just be such a waste of time. I mean, you're really throwing the dice to think someone would come across it.
The argument,
especially here.
Exactly. Yeah. And the argument that supports these structures and whatnot being real is, you know, this even goes for, kind of goes back to the crop circle thing. I'll get on that in a second, is that humans can't keep their traps shut. So if they're going to take the time to build a cool structure or something, they want credit for it, you know, and people would use this argument about the crop circles. Well, yeah, there was 2 guys that came out that said, oh, we made the crop circles. And then, you know, 2 old guys with like a contraption. And then crop circles started appearing in all other places. And you started doing the logic, like, wait a minute, these are gorgeous crop circles nobody's coming out and taking credit for. And we are vain. You know, humans are vain. Yeah. And the structures that we've seen are pretty simplistic. But the truth of the matter is that where's the payoff? Where's the, you know, if they're 4 or 5 hours building something as intricate as what we've seen, how do they ever know if anybody ever saw it and thought that it was a Bigfoot or thought that it was a piece of art or anything else? Why remain unanimous? And or if you do remain unanimous, eventually those things trickle out because they have to tell somebody about it.
Oh, it'll be on Facebook.
Yeah,
It'll be
exactly.
on Facebook.
Yeah.
So, yeah. People who do things like that, they want credit for what they've done. They want people to know, that they did this. So yeah, that, and that's the thing that I've told people for years. Know your area. If you go to your area and you know what goes on there all the time, pretty much, you can narrow down what's going on right there, and that's how it is here. I know what goes on pretty much all over this place. So when something happens, I know if they did it or if something else did it, so, and the thing is for people not to question themselves when they're out there looking at stuff. Just take photos, document what all you can, bring it and share it with other people. And people who have been seeing things or know about those things. And what happens is you see a whole lot of stuff that's very close to the other. And that, is, and you probably heard that too in all your interviews and different things about structures, about glyphs, about, other things and ways of communication. You don't just see it in one place.
Yeah.
You've got the same things going on in other places. And that right there gives you an idea that, wait a minute, maybe there is a reason for this, so.
Yeah, and we've approached so many of the different things throughout this process with a rational mind. It's important to keep a rational mind because otherwise you just start seeing everything starts looking like it. And you need to be able to differentiate. There's a gifting spot that we've been focusing on, and there's only a few people that have access to it, but somebody left a jar of peanut butter and they left it sealed. And there's bears in the area. And so we've come back, and they've put some other peanut butter out there before, and we've come back and we've found jars of peanut butter that have been just destroyed. You can imagine a bear playing with a toy at the zoo or whatever. But I mean, we've taken photos of these pieces of plastic with teeth marks and scratch and everything, and there's no peanut butter left. So we were down there a month and a half or so ago, and I found a jar of peanut butter that was mostly intact. And I walked up to it and I looked at it, and the top was on. And there was not a single scratch in the plastic. There wasn't a single scratch on the top. There wasn't a single scratch anywhere from bears. And what was interesting was it was on a stump. So a bear would come along and knock it off and do the best it can. It's like, we watch our cats do this all the time. All he wants to do is get in that jar of peanut butter. So what was interesting about this jar of peanut butter that I had found was there was a hole poked right through the top. There was a hole poked right through the top, like somebody had taken their index finger, and pushed as hard as they could to get in there. And there was a scoop mark in the peanut butter that went it looked like somebody went like this and pulled it out and then set it back down. And I took photos of it. And what was interesting was I took photos of it, I looked at it, and I was trying to rationalize it. And it wasn't until a couple of days later that I looked back at those photos and thought, that's almost the only explanation I can find, because I couldn't find a single scratch mark on that thing. I couldn't come and the swab, I guess, of the peanut butter.
It wasn't a stick or anything, because it wasn't an abrupt.
It wasn't a stick. It had all the earmarks of it being somebody's just going.
We eat out of jars is the same, forensics.
Yeah. So which was very fascinating. I thought that was super interesting. I could picture him standing there, this 10-foot tall, just going pop. No, I don't like that. I want Jiffy or something, That's what it looked like.
Yeah, and it seems like a lot of times when things like that happen, they like to do things that always make you wonder. Like, not always, but there are times where they'll do something and you're like, it's like because they're so subtle in a lot of the things they do. It always makes you question, like,
Yeah.
what the heck? You know, it's funny. Sometimes they just love to mess with us, or that's where their sense of humor comes into play. Yeah.
That's true.
Well, you know, the possibility that while you're there taking pictures of this and mulling this and talking about this, they're probably there somewhere watching you.
Oh yeah.
You know, and enjoying, you know, this process because you are thinking, and that they want us to think. They want us to think about things, because then we begin to process and we begin to learn. And yeah, I can just imagine they were, you know, there watching. And my line of thought would have been, okay, watch this. I'm going to stick my finger down through here and swirl it around, and then we'll hide out. And when he comes back to get it, we're going to watch it. See what he's doing.
Yeah. The look on my face was kind of like, well, this is weird behavior for a bear. I can't see it.
Yeah.
Taking it up, holding it up, and like, you know, sticking its tongue through the top of the peanut butter jar. It's really strange. I'll have to send you guys the photos. You know, maybe you can put them on your page. It's pretty funny, actually, really, when you think about it. But we go out there. When we do go out there, we go out there as soon as we get out of the vehicles. Mindset is, hello, we're here. Hey guys, you know, it's kind of like we're back, and we're respectful the entire time we're there. You know, and there's never a moment where there's this sense of doom, like we're being watched or observed or something's tracking us. There's never that. But we do have this idea and this notion that we are being watched.
And I'm sure you are.
Yeah.
I'm sure you are.
Definitely are.
The doom is I think a lot of that doom, that dread feeling is well, it's fear, but it's like perceptual, you know, it's like person's perspective, because I've felt something like that several times, and I don't know, sometimes it's me and my interpretation of the feeling, and there have been times where maybe I crossed a line, or I did something I shouldn't have done, you know, or pushed my luck, or, you know, I know one time I definitely just crossed the line I probably shouldn't have, you know, and that was like there was definitely like a lesson in that one. But when people that's woo. I mean, that's all woo also. Like that's like when people say they feel dread or they feel like they're being watched, what do you think that is? Like, that's psychic ability. That is like paranormal stuff going on. But now that's considered normal, you know?
Yeah.
Like, oh, I felt like I was being watched. Well, okay, well, why did we just skim over that? Like, that's just normal now. But anything else that happens, you know, isn't normal.
It sure wasn't normal when I first came into this and I talked about it.
Right.
You know, it wasn't normal at all. And it was interesting, you know, and it's really interesting to see how people are opening up and changing and things that were, you just didn't talk about, you just didn't say those things, you know, because people would label you crazy. Well, I've always been crazy, so it wasn't, you know, anything new for me for people to say, oh, she's crazy. So, you know, that wasn't a big deal to me. But, you know, that's the thing, is now we're able to say so much more. And with you guys bringing this forward, there'll be another shift in things we can talk about as far as the big guys are, you know, concerned. And who's that the new normal, you know? That's just kind of how it is. Anyway, it is in the life that I see, because I don't see much of that other flesh and blood side. I guess they all decided they didn't want to hear me anymore. So I don't hear that anymore. So I count myself very lucky there.
Mm.
Yeah, well, there were also, because I started researching, around like 2010 is when things started happening again for me in my life. So I was like, I'll start looking into this. And back then, I mean, that was, Arlo was already well entrenched in the Bigfoot scene, back then. But it's changed so much since then. I mean, back then, the weirdest thing that would happen that people would talk about is batteries being drained, or stuff like that. And then people were still very hesitant to attach that to Sasquatch. People would always just be like, I don't know what that was. I don't know what that was, and it was always that. And then eventually it changed into, well, they drained our batteries. And then that became accepted and normalized. And so now it's like, there's all these things that are woo and paranormal that are slowly being accepted, even in like the strictest flesh and blood people. And so it's definitely going in a good direction. Now orbs are accepted as part of it. Just there's slowly the telepathy mind speak thing is starting to be addressed more. But I think with your movie and your documentary coming out, there's so many people that are afraid to come out, especially with the weirder side of things, because they got bullied by normal society people, city people. And then even if you do get accepted in the Bigfoot world, then you get bullied by flesh and blood people, or and it's hard. So yeah, I think that what you guys are doing is very important, and it's going to help people a lot more than I think a lot of people will understand. So
we hope so. We hope so, and we're feeling that way right now. We really are. We really, really are. So we're going to just keep on doing what we're doing, and like I said, we feel there's an invisible foot behind us kind of pushing us along, and we know that we feel very, after doing this for a year, we know that if we take a wrong turn someplace in our storytelling, we're going to know it. We're going to feel it.
You will. I think you will too.
Yeah.
They're very good at that.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
They're very good at that. So what is you don't have to tell the whole thing, because I know it's going to be in the documentary, but what's the weirdest thing anyone has ever related to you as being associated with the Sasquatch?
Oh boy.
Define weird.
That's tough. That's a tough question. Yeah. Like a year ago, we would have had a million answers, but
now it's like, oh yeah,
yeah.
Boy, that's, I'll tell you what, this kind of goes back into the woo thing a little bit. So we're putting together a new trailer that will be released in a while. And I got the cloaking footage from Barb Shoot. And I don't know if you two have seen that before, but it came out a couple years ago.
Yep.
I've got advanced software now that through machine learning and artificial intelligence can up-res that. So the original file was shot in 720p on a cell phone camera. And Barb was gracious enough to give us permission to use it in our documentary. And I was able to up-res that footage to 4K. And the computer goes through and it interprets every frame and redraws it and whatnot. This is really kind of very cutting edge technology. And I've been doing video my entire life, close to 30 years now, since I was a little kid. And I spent 3 or 4 hours the other night going through that footage, looking at that footage frame by frame of the cloak. And there's not a lot, there's a lot that I can still learn about the optical process and the video process, but there's not a lot I don't know on how it's processed through sensors and the technical side of things. I'm not an engineer by any stretch, but I understand optics and illusions and things. And there's been some folks that have brought some things to me that I've debunked or I've reanalyzed. And that footage is some of the most compelling footage I've ever seen in my entire life of that cloaking. I can't say for sure that it's a Bigfoot because it seems smaller, but it could be. In my mind, I'm feeling like it's a juvenile Bigfoot that's practicing its cloaking because of the way that it ducks down, it turns around, it moves quickly back in the forest. And they see it. They acknowledge it on the video. You can hear them. But when I finally got to that point where I'd ran out of different things, you know, a lens refraction, a digital glitch in the recording, you know, I went kind of down the check mark, and especially having it and up-resing it to 4K, I got chills. I just kind of paused there, and I was kind of like, well, I'll be darned. Here it is. Here it is for the world to see. And the world has seen it. She's got plenty of views on it, but I want to present it up-resed because look, you can see the shape, the figure much better. I showed it to Jill and she jumped.
Yeah.
So they're
unsettling, I guess.
Yeah, I mean,
well, it's the unknown. It's like, well, it's just when you don't understand. I said, boy, here's the pot calling the kettle black. I'm like, oh, not understanding what the technology is or the science behind it. It is a little spooky, but no one was harmed.
But I thought to myself, the other thing that was odd about it was I thought, okay, here's an intelligent observer that turns and runs away from these people, yet it's invisible. So to me, there was something that was very interesting and childish about it. It was like, oh, I'm invisible, nobody can see me, but I better get out of here. Like it perceives some sort of a threat or something. I don't know if somebody was walking in its direction or what happened, but that's the way the video plays through. Is there's something standing there, ducks down, turns around, and takes off. It's a fascinating piece of footage.
Yeah, I remember when that came out. Barbara and I had talked about that when she did that, because there was a lot of cloaking conversations going on at that time. And years before, I'd gotten a photo of one in that process. And of course, I was really earned my crazy on that one. But, you know, it was just that thing. Okay, why did this happen? Why did they allow that to happen? Because they don't have to allow anything. There's a reason. There's always a reason. Yeah. There was a reason I put the photo on my Facebook page and got interesting replies about it. And there was a reason when people really started talking about the cloaking. What was this gonna bring to us? You know, if we were open, we were going to understand at that point these people, these ancient people that live here with us, they're doing things we don't do.
Yeah.
The truth of the matter is we did do those things, and I've seen it. We talked about that. Native elders do things that people attribute to the Sasquatch.
Yeah.
So there are things that we have pushed away that are coming back to us now. And that's one of the things that I've seen through the years with them time and time again, and working in a personal relationship with a person, is they're bringing back to us who we are, so that we will understand who we are, who we really are.
Yeah.
And so all of these things have been done by design or divine order, whichever term you want to use. And once again, they're in control of it. We think we are, but we're not. They are. And this whole thing for you guys flowing as it does, the synchronicity of life, of this just opening up and happening. You know, that's just another thing to say, okay, this is supposed to happen now.
Yeah.
We've had all of these things that have been building up to this, and now this is what we're doing. And, you know, talking in person with you guys, I could feel your passion for this. And, you know, and I can tell you too, you guys, you guys are in for a wild ride of learning things. So, and as Sam will tell you, I say a lot, I love watching people when they really start to gain more understanding and more knowledge about who they are and who we are.
Yeah.
So I'm really excited to watch this.
We know we're just getting started too. We do. We know.
Oh yeah.
We're still in line for the roller coaster.
Yes.
You know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've already paid my ticket and had my ride, so I just get to sit back and watch everybody else and
Watch
love
everybody.
it.
Yeah. Yeah. There's gonna be a bit of that, no question about it. But the point of a roller coaster is to enjoy yourself, you know.
That's right.
So there's definitely been a lot of that going on. We've really enjoyed ourselves,
Yeah.
and we've enjoyed the friendships that we've made through this process as well. And it's really brought us together, and we've helped people connect together.
Yeah.
And so the community side of things has been wonderful. It's been absolutely wonderful.
There's some wonderful, wonderful people in this that I count as family. And, you know, a lot of my family, as far as my Bigfoot family, are pretty much all over the United States. You know, being I traveled so much, a lot of them are in the PNW because I spent a lot of time there. But it's when you find those heart people in this, it's just like, yeah, I know you, family. Yeah, you're my family.
Yeah.
Soul family. Yeah, you're gonna meet some really awesome people, and you'll encounter a few buttheads too. But,
That can be said in any community.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I can.
yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Do that. It's true.
Yeah, but for the most part, now especially, I feel like we have kind of going back to the, you know, how it used to be. There's like less and less of those people, and it seems like there's more and more open, kind people in this that are getting their voice heard more so. And it could be because I'm not really paying much attention to the drama and the other stuff anymore, where that used to be in the forefront. But I just don't see it much anymore. I don't know. Maybe that's just me, but I feel like it's changing. So, but yeah, you guys are doing good stuff, and you guys are getting an approval. I can feel that. So that's where the guidance is coming from behind the scenes. So,
Yeah.
You just embrace it, go with it. Be open to anything. Like when you know your suggestion to people, just be open. I mean, I think people, even when they say their idea of open, still has like a border on it, you know, because like our society is so rigid, and the box is here, and you say be open, and people are like, okay, I'll open up a little bit, and then they just go to here, and it's like there's stuff all around and in and everywhere. Like when you open up to everything, any possibility, that's when it's really like, whew, you know, like holy crap, everything. So yeah, just
There's a famous scene in probably my favorite film, Close Encounters of the Third Kind, and the aliens are coming to abduct Barry in the house, and his mother is going crazy. Obviously, she doesn't want her child to be kidnapped by aliens, but it's a terrifying scene because those of us who have the loved one we don't want to see them taken away. But Barry, on the other hand, is standing there with the door wide open as these red lights are coming in, there's steam and things are falling out of the refrigerator, and he's looking around, he's laughing. You know, he's seeing all this stuff happen, he's laughing because he's just completely open. He has no idea, has no fear of anything. He's just enjoying what's happening around him. And I think if we go in that with that kind of childlike wonder, of course we don't want to be kidnapped, but we go into it with that childlike wonder and awe, we're going to see some really cool stuff. And so it's just that practice of getting ourselves kind of over that hump. And obviously we have to protect ourselves and our loved ones, but we do need to be less guarded, is what I'm saying.
When the aliens come for you, I will not put up a fight.
No, you'll go with it.
Right.
You got to take me too. Wait a minute.
Yeah.
It's not bad.
I'll report back.
Right. Yeah. The fear thing is definitely a hurdle. There's no doubt about that.
It's always, and I think it's always going to be there. It's just who we are.
I think everyone. Yeah, I think everyone struggles with it a little bit. Even me. I mean, like I laugh at myself sometimes because I'm like, I've put a lot of the, I don't have much fear, but there are times, and it'll make me laugh when something will happen and I'll get spooked, and I kind of like those moments now. I'm like, I laugh because I'm like, you thought you weren't scared anymore, and they'll do something and it'll make me jump, or it's like when I was camping a couple weeks ago, I was gonna sleep outside all night in my chair. I was like, I'll just sleep outside because it's nice. I was staring at the stars and I was falling in and out, in and out. And then I woke up at one point because I heard something, and I was like, instantly my mom was like, that could be a bear, it's probably a cougar, you're out here just sitting in your chair in the middle of the open. And I'm like, well, maybe I should just go back in the camper, and it's like this thing that I think you're always gonna struggle with that. But when it comes to like the weird stuff, that stuff doesn't scare me at all. I don't know what it is about that. Like, I love that stuff. Yeah. So especially and it happened. I don't know. I should ask you guys this. Do you guys have weird stuff happen, and does one of you have more weird stuff happen than the other now?
Well, it happens to both of us, but I think Jill's definitely the more of the antenna for the weirder stuff. But it can shift. It can shift.
You get your share of weirdness, but I'm more of a consistent, not weird, just new experiences.
Signals.
Yeah.
Signals. Yeah. Signs, call it whatever you want it, but waves, yeah.
Little winks from the universe.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Because like my wife puts up with a lot, and because there's stuff that starts happening in the house sometimes, or and even last night there's some stuff going on in our bedroom, and luckily she slept through all of it because there was definitely somebody in our bedroom walking around. And,
oh wow.
So yeah, it can get a little weird. So I don't know if you guys are cool with that stuff, because to me that's fun. I love that stuff, but I'm not. That's the stuff I'm not scared of.
What's interesting about in the process of doing this documentary, there has been for me there's been a shift. The kind of the unexplained and things I don't understand. It doesn't spook me as much. And like Brett and Mike, our cinematographer, they can attest when we're out in the woods, I'm more concerned about bears, cougars, like you said. I mean, we were filming at Mount Adams and there were deer. This was last summer, August-ish. Yeah. But the deer were out, and I was not aware that deer made such terrible noises.
It was like a guttural kind of a call or something.
I thought the bears were communicating to each other to ambush us, and like one popped up behind me. I screamed. I went to the car. He was on his own, but he had the car keys though, so I guess it's really interesting. The things that should, hypothetically, the things I should be scared of, I'm not scared of. I'm more flesh and blood, people, bears, cougars,
right. Yeah.
poisonous bugs.
Yeah.
And those are things we have to be aware of. I mean, we're still walking a human existence.
Yeah.
And so we do have to be aware of our surroundings. But what happens is then you begin to know what those things, bear and cougar and whatever, you know, what are their signs. And so then you're more aware of whether they're around or not. But then you get all those other things that are happening, you know, that really don't have anything to do with bear or cougar or anything that we accept as being there. That's, you know, that becomes a part of our life. And that's what's happening, you know, with you guys, even more so now, since you've got into this, that have either of you read the Celestine Prophecy?
I haven't.
It
No.
is an old book, but it talks about the synchronicity of life and how when you begin to open up, you just go in the flow and you see all these little things that happen that are like signposts that, oh, and so I think about, well, this is why I saw this. And so something's going to happen to me and I'm in this. And then I turn to go another way and, oh, there's who I was looking for. And so, you know, it's about that synchronistic walk of life. When we are in what is termed the flow,
Yeah.
then things we begin to see more things. We begin to understand more things. And life works much better.
Much better.
Way.
Couldn't agree more. Couldn't agree more. And frankly, you know, our hope is that when somebody watches our film, if they can walk away with that, even if they're not convinced that these beings are in existence, you know, there are some very important lessons to be learned from our movie. You know, we'd like it if somebody were to really start opening their mind to their existence. But again, you've got to release. You've got to release and just kind of let life take you on its journey, you know. And it's very important that, you know, we don't live in fear. Regardless.
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
Can't let our fear control us. And we know, I mean, there's some people out there that really struggle with that, and that's understood. I mean, there's people that have been through some very serious trauma, and it's great to have the helpers in our society that are out there to help people that need to deal with those things. We interview a hypnotist who, you know, there's been some individuals out there that he's talked to who've had sightings and they can't get rid of the sighting in their brain. It was very traumatic for them. And so he'll walk them through hypnosis and he'll help them understand it better. And they're able to recount it, you know, the brain basically goes into record mode. He can go into their brain and fast forward, rewind, slow motion, pause, frame by frame. They can see and describe and feel every detail and come away from that experience in a positive light. So there are, you know, that is a message in the film that if this is something you're struggling with, don't let it burden you. We've talked to hunters who don't want to go in the forest ever again, and that was their hobby, that was their joy. That's not right, you know. Maybe it is time to stop hunting. Maybe that's the message for you, but maybe not. I don't know. That's for them to determine.
But to the people we've talked to who don't want to go out into the woods, period.
Mm-hmm. That's too bad.
That's too bad.
That's too bad. There's so much beauty in this world for us to explore and to experience. That's a prison to a certain extent. You're confining yourself.
And it was their perception of what happened that created this whole thing of them being in fear.
Right. That's right. That's exactly right. Yeah.
And they might grow out of it. I know a lot of people personally who had traumatic experiences, and then it took a couple of years or even a couple of months, you know, and they'll get back on the horse or whatever, because yeah. And then they'll work through it, because, you know, we have a friend that would go to our camp house in Georgia who had a traumatic experience as a child, that it took him a long time to get back into the woods. And he started getting back to the woods and worked through his, I mean, he's made very big strides in his getting through that, his childhood trauma from it. And yeah, I mean, it's so paradigm shattering for a lot of people, you know.
Yeah.
And like the two guys that you guys mentioned earlier that got to see the same thing, that's such a blessing for those two guys to be able to experience that together and be like a support group for each other, because so many people don't have that support group, and then they question their sanity. And you know, because that's what happened to me. My support group for many years before I met Arla and everyone was my wife, and she was questioning my sanity, I'm sure, at some point, because who else do you have to talk to? And so, like, those guys are very lucky.
I told those guys that. I said, you guys realize you won the lottery because you were both together.
Right.
You're both here to experience this yourself, you know? And it's been very therapeutic for them. It's been very good for them. Yeah.
Yeah. It helps
even,
when you've got somebody to talk to.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Even for us, when we've had our own personal experiences alone, but we've also got experiences together, like Arla and I, where we've experienced some things together. And then, like with Ginger and I have like Ginger and Paul and me and Keith have like a really cool experience that we all got to experience together. And when those things happen, when you're with people and everyone's seeing it, it's such a cool thing. Very rare, I think. And even
it creates a bond.
Totally.
Yeah,
and
it's about the same thing.
Oh, bad.
Oh, I was about to say the same thing, that these two guys, I should say, I think of them as boys because they're much younger, but they're in their 30s. So here I am, like the old guy. These two guys, they're bonded for life. They're bonded for life.
Yes. Yep. They have a unique experience that puts them together forever. Yeah.
It lasted 2 minutes, you know, that was it. Well, you know, I told him, I said, wow, it was like 2 minutes long. Or you guys have no idea. You know, so many of these people have seen them walk across the highway, you know, like gone and just that fast. I said, wow, you don't even know how lucky you are to have experienced that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's really awesome, because, you know, a lot of people will see, well, like your title, Flash of Beauty. Well, you'll just see a flash of one, like a second of one. And that's when you really, really question your sanity.
Yeah. Yep. That's right. That's right. And some people try and rationalize it being something else.
And other people, they'll spend the rest of their lives chasing, trying to get answers and to see it again.
And our clinical psychologist in our film talks a lot about this. You know, he talks a lot about that process of when you see something for just an instant and you really know what it is. There's a lot of people out there that will bury it, and they'll bury it so much they won't even remember it.
Yes. Yep.
And that's the fascinating thing. You know, he says there could be people out in our society who've had sightings and they've completely forgotten about them because they couldn't process them.
A whole subgroup.
Whole subgroup
of Bigfoot sightings that just
thrown away.
Does not compute.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It happened to me.
Did it?
I had a sighting when I was 8 years old, and I totally forgot about it until things started happening again. 25 years later.
Wow.
Like so it's definitely like a defense mechanism, you know, to bury that stuff away. I think, Arla, you witnessed it firsthand, didn't you? When you guys were at Bluff Creek with somebody and you guys saw, wasn't it you? I know that Tom was there. I think you were there too.
Saw what?
And you guys were at Bluff. When you saw.
Oh,
when you
you're
guys were
talking
down the
about,
road.
you're Tom and I and a friend, Jackie Tonks, had gone into town. It was like 30-mile drive because we were at the end of the go road, I think, in Northern California. And we were coming back, and I had dropped my head down. I was kind of half dozing, and two walked across right in front of the vehicle. Now, I didn't see them walk across. I had my head down, kind of half asleep. But then when I heard them exclaim, I looked up, and all I saw was two something literally down the side, straight down. And the tree were just flapping where they had gone across the road. Well, she took it as it was two guys in flip-flops and hoodies and something else, because there's a lot of drugs in that area. She just could not grasp what she had seen, and she literally changed her story and talked herself out of it even more. And then she had that epiphany. Gosh, I don't know if it was a year later, 2 years later, I don't remember exactly. She knew what she saw at that point. It came back to her. That is what I saw. I didn't see two guys going across the road with hoodie and flip-flops. But she saw the bottom of the foot, and you know, as they were going across, and it was like she did the only thing she could do at that point. That's all her mind was going to let her accept at that point. And so it took a lot of talking about it and getting through it, and she finally did. And then she was like, oh my, I saw two walk across the road in front of the car. So you will do that. The mind does that. And a lot of times, if you really don't have a real reference for what you see, you know, you'll do that too. So but the one cool thing too that I am seeing is people are remembering. They're remembering. And even I did that. I mean, my first encounter, I tell people I was 6 at the time. But my mom and I were talking. I believe that my actual first sighting, I was 3 years old. And how that happened was, I was sitting on my mom and dad's bed. Dad was in the bathroom getting ready for bed. Mom was in the closet doing something, and Mom heard me talking to somebody. And she come into the room, and she looked, and she screamed for my dad and said, there's a nasty, hairy, dirty man looking in the window. And of course, immediately Dad ran through the kitchen, grabbed the butcher knife and out the door, looked everywhere, went around, couldn't find anything. And so we were talking about that, and that was more than likely the first time. I mean, because her description is so textbook for a lot of what people tell you. Dirty, hairy man. No. So it is interesting that people are opening up, and what does that is all of us putting this out into the universe in a good way and creating safe places and things to get dialogue started. So I think that's really cool.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because I go where a lot of this stuff started with me is at a cabin that I go to. It's a remote cabin in Canada. And the guys that I go with are ex-military DoD guys. And, you know, those guys they've seen things up there and experienced things up there, but they will not talk about it. And it's like interrogating them to even get them to admit something happened. And yeah, so if if I could just break through with those guys, I'd love to pick people's brains, man, and just see what people have experienced and just afraid to talk about. So I see your guys' movie, and I'm very hopeful that it will normalize it enough to get people to come out, because we've all had the behind closed doors experiences where people will be like, okay, well, there was this one time, I've never told anybody about this. And I love that stuff because it's cathartic for those people at the same time, to be able to discuss it without being ridiculed or laughed at. So I think it's extremely important. And
I think that my own personal view at this point is that the paranormal is a common occurrence. And I don't truly believe that there's a single person on the face of the planet that hasn't experienced something paranormal in their lifetime, probably over the age of 15 or 20. But whether they know it or not, they've experienced something paranormal. And they may realize it years later, whether it's a premonition, it's a psychic thing, or what have you. They're getting ready to call somebody, and that person calls them at the exact same time. Who knows? But I just have a hard time believing that there isn't a single person that hasn't experienced something like that science can't explain.
Yeah. Oh, I agree. Even down to now, and I use this analogy a lot when people talk about mind speak, which is nothing but telepathy. You're talking in a different way. A couple, you're driving down the road and you're thinking something, and the person that you're with asks you a question about what you're thinking. Now that's woo, if you want to call it woo, but it's actually a natural occurrence that happens all the time. Or you think about somebody and the phone rings, and that's who it is. These are simple, everyday things that happen to people, and they just discount them as coincidence. This is coincidence, when really it's not coincidence at all. And if we just open up to it, then it begins to happen.
Yeah. And, if you talk to mathematicians about the odds of these things happening, they're infinitesimal for the most part. Yes. There's examples. You can go onto YouTube and find examples all night long of things that have happened that are extraordinary. And you start doing the math on it, which is a science. You start adding that science component to it. I mean, we're talking 1 billion to 1, 1 trillion to 1. Whatever the odds are, you're probably better off at that moment playing the lottery, playing Powerball. It's just, it's incredible, but you're exactly right. We just kind of pass them off.
Hey, so how close are you guys to having this done?
Oh boy. We are editing as fast as we can. We have, and to be honest, every interview that we've done could be its own documentary in and of itself, like a standalone documentary. And we have how many hours? I mean, we have over 30 interviews, and some of those people are repeats, repeated interviews throughout the documentary. And I can't even imagine how many hours we have total. And then trying to...
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, we've got, as far as data goes, for the geeks out there, we've got over 16 terabytes of data right now, which is a lot of data to go through. But
we're doing it.
We're doing it. Part of what we're thinking about doing is releasing the film and then maybe putting out the entire interviews, because we feel like that's a great way for folks to kind of do their own research. And again, just like what Jill said, Arla, I mean, when we came out to Oklahoma, we left your home going, how do we even edit that? Everything she said was fantastic. we loved every minute of it, and so we feel like it's almost it's unjust to cut out some of these wonderful things. It makes our jobs as editors extremely difficult. So we're talking about potentially, if possible, putting these full-length interviews out there so people can
as
Yeah.
companion pieces
As
to
companion
the documentary,
pieces, yeah.
because it's like on the average interview was a minimum an hour. All the interviews were an hour to 2 hours, and for some of those we'll only be using a few sound bites or just a moment from the story. And there's no such thing when you ask someone about their Bigfoot encounter, there is no such thing as a quick and short story. No, like,
No, no.
the
Right.
experiencers we interviewed, they go into such detail of like, I was wearing my red sneakers that were scuffed on the left side. It was slightly overcast. Humidity was 60%. Like, just go down the list.
Yeah.
Play by play like you would not believe. And it just doesn't do their experience justice if we can't present
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. I totally understand that. And I, my deal is I can't wait to hear what everybody else said.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
kind of like when we first started this, we talked a lot about Ron Moorhead's analogy about the court of law and being proven in a court of law.
Yes.
And that stuck with us. And we thought, you know what, here we go. We've got all these interviews, and some of these interviews are coming with photographs and different things. But it's kind of like just throwing witnesses up on the stand.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And we'll let the audience, the individual, be the lawyer that questions them, and if somebody wants to, they can take notes and they can start drawing their own conclusions, and we can kind of bring a lot of these experiencers to them. So that's something, we'd love to get feedback from folks to see if they'd be interested in having access to the full-length interviews, if that's important to them. So we're really thinking about doing that.
And our goal is to have this ready this fall. That's the
Fingers crossed.
Okay. Sounds good to me. And the interesting thing here is you are documenting. I mean, I've got a book, and I talk about a lot of stuff, and then I talk to a lot of people, but you're putting it down for people to look at, and all of the different things that you're going to be addressing. There's going to be something there that people see, and that's what they needed to see. So it's like this repository of information. Well, if, like I say, when I do a speaking, you don't have to believe anything I say, but don't throw it out. Just file it away. And that's what you guys are doing. You're filing all of this. So if someone has an experience similar to that, they now will have something to go back to and go, that's what happened.
That's right.
That's exactly what happened to me.
Yeah.
And, that's important. That's what Sam and I talk about, planting seeds. That's what we're doing. We may not think we're making a change here for people, but we are planting those seeds anyway. And, there'll be a lot of seeds that grow to fruition that we'll never know, that they did, but we planted those seeds because it's what we were supposed to do.
Yeah, that's right. That's exactly why you're here. Yeah. And you're doing just that.
That's
I also think about a lot of, I think about a lot of investigators or researchers that a lot of their stories start off with, I saw this show when I was a kid, or I saw this movie when I was a kid. It really, sparked my interest. So even your guys' movie will influence people too, like the next generation. When they see it, it'll be maybe the first thing they see, like kids. Like when I show it to my kids, they'll watch it, maybe it'll spark something in them that I wasn't able to do. So yeah, I think it's going to be great. I think you guys are doing good, and don't rush it. Because I know, like, I do a lot of audio recording when I go out on my trips, and I know, like, and it's just audio, but there's like 10 hours of audio that I have to listen through.
Yeah.
I know how much of a pain in the
Yep.
ass that is. So I can't imagine editing a video. And I mean, you guys will definitely, it'll come to you. You guys will figure out how to do it. But I think that, yeah, the individual interviews would be really cool too. And
Yeah, we think so. We think so too. We think
Yeah.
so.
the first thing you said, earlier was like, we don't know if we're going to do a sequel. My first thought was like, I don't think this is ever going to end for you guys,
Yeah.
Yes. That the more you go down the rabbit hole, the more you'll see there is to tell.
Yeah,
So,
that's right. That's
So
right.
we've been told.
Yeah. Yep.
but I think you guys are, jump. And, well, you already have jumped down the rabbit hole. You're just in the process of going deeper, but
Yeah.
you're open to it. So that's really important.
We're open to it. I got to give credit to those that are following. Nell has been working on some editing, and Brian Landon, who's come on late, that's helping us with some producing aspects. And not all of those people, David and Brian especially, haven't had the opportunity to be there out in the wilderness with us on all our shoots, but they're seeing what we're seeing. They're feeling what we're feeling, and I know we all definitely started off one person and now we're this person, and there's still a lot of growth to go. But we're definitely falling down this rabbit hole together, hand in hand. There's no question about it, and we're not afraid to grab some people to come along with us.
Always have a party when you're going down.
Oh yeah.
Always. Yeah, that's for sure. Well, we really have enjoyed you guys coming on, and we'd like to bring you back at some point when you get a little closer to getting this together, and we can talk some more about it. I'm sure there's a lot more to talk about. So, Sam,
No,
who knows? Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah, definitely. So stoked to have you guys on. Very excited about this, and very excited about what you guys are doing, and just keep it up.
Thank you.
Thank you for a ride.
We appreciate it.
thank you. Thank you guys.
Yeah, thank you. All right. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Night.
Take care.
Good night.